Welcome to this Tube Duel Original Explainer. We're diving straight into the fascinating, incredibly humble, and honestly, downright chaotic origins of the FIFA World Cup. We're going to explore exactly how a totally fragmented, messy idea managed to transform into the absolute behemoth we know today.
So let's kick things off with a quick question. What do you think is the single most widely viewed sporting event on Earth? You know, the one event that absolutely crushes everything else in television viewership. You might immediately jump to the Olympic Games, right? Well, actually, scratch that. It's not the Olympics.
It's the FIFA World Cup, and this number right here perfectly captures the sheer mind-boggling scale of it. 5 billion. That is the estimated number of engaged viewers for just the 2022 tournament alone. I mean, that's more than half the planet tuning in. The modern World Cup is this massive global festival that literally stops time in countries all over the world. But you know, it absolutely did not start that way. In fact, getting this whole thing off the ground was almost a total disaster.
Section 1. The Quest for a Championship. Let's see how a scattered series of amateur matches eventually evolved into a dedicated world championship. Because early attempts at international football, they really struggled. Back in 1906, a Swiss-led tournament completely failed. And then we had these small club competitions like the Lipton Trophy in 1909, but the real game changer? That arrived in 1924 and 1928 when Uruguay took home back-to-back Olympic golds. Now, because the Olympics were strictly for amateur players back then, FIFA President Jules Rimet, he saw a golden opportunity. He decided to launch a standalone world championship for all players, officially naming Uruguay as the host for the inaugural 1930 tournament to celebrate their centennial of independence.
Section 2, the 1930 inaugural tournament. So the foundation was set. But getting teams to actually show up during the Great Depression, well, that was an entirely different ballgame.
As you'll see, this very first tournament got off to a wildly lopsided start. Just look at this breakdown. 7 teams from South America, 2 from North America, and only 4 from Europe. Why? Well, because of the daunting, incredibly expensive cross-Atlantic journey by ship. Literally 0 European teams signed up until just 2 months before kickoff. That left us with a rather patchwork 13-team roster.
Section 3. A Voyage to Uruguay. We really need to talk about how those 4 European teams, France, Belgium, Romania, and Yugoslavia, actually managed to make this epic trip.
It took FIFA President Jules Rimet personally intervening to get them on board. French player Lucien Laurent actually recalled the grueling 15-day journey on a ship called the Conta Verde. Get this, they shared deck space with 2 other teams, the referees, and the actual World Cup trophy itself. Laurent noted that they literally did their basic physical exercises down below in the ship and their actual football training right up there on the deck. I mean, can you imagine?
But hey, all that deck training clearly paid off. On July 13, 1930, playing in the snow, by the way, during the South American winter, Laurent didn't just participate, he made history just days after stepping off that boat by volleying in the very first goal in World Cup history against Mexico. There was no massive bonus pay, no lucrative sponsorships. These guys were just amateurs out there playing for the pure love of the game.
Section 4. The 1930 final. Let's fast forward to the ultimate showdown of that very first tournament, played in front of a completely packed house of 93,000 fans.
Now, this matchup between Uruguay and Argentina brilliantly illustrates the utter chaos of the era. The 2 teams literally couldn't agree on which match ball to use. No joke. Tensions were so high that FIFA had to step in and create this bizarre, on-the-fly compromise. The solution? They let Argentina use their preferred ball for the first half and then swapped it out so Uruguay could use their own ball for the second half. You just can't make this stuff up.
Ultimately, though, it was Uruguay's day. Despite a fiercely partisan crowd and even literal death threats sent to an Argentine player on the eve of the match, the hosts, Uruguay, won the game 4-2. They were crowned the inaugural champions, and the very next day was literally declared a national holiday in Uruguay. Talk about a massive celebration.
Section 5. War and a Hidden Trophy. So the tournament gained some real momentum in 1934 and 1938. But then tragedy struck, halting the games completely due to World War II.
The ultimate prize back then, which was later officially named the Jules Rimet Trophy, was this beautiful gold-plated silver cup supported by Nike, the ancient Greek goddess of victory. And as war broke out across Europe, this totally invaluable trophy was being held by the 1938 champions, Italy. And what happened next is straight out of a Hollywood spy thriller. In a truly astonishing act of preservation, an Italian FIFA vice president named Ottorino Barassi realized the trophy was in serious danger. So,
He secretly transported the cup from a bank in Rome and hid it in a shoebox, right under his own bed. And it worked. He successfully kept the original World Cup out of Nazi hands for the entirety of the war. Just an unbelievable story.
Section 6. Evolution of the format. Thankfully, the trophy survived the war. Now let's see how the tournament built back up from a quirky, uneven competition into a highly standardized sporting juggernaut.
The 1950s really brought some crucial stability to the whole competition. In 1950, the British teams finally entered the tournament. Then, by 1954, a proper, balanced 16-team format was established. But 1958? That was a massive landmark year. A young prodigy named Pelé made his debut, and the Brazilian captain actually invented the famous tradition of lifting the trophy high up in the air for the photographers. It's a gesture that literally every winning captain has repeated ever since.
As global participation skyrocketed, so did the format itself. You can see a steady expansion over the decades here, from 16 teams up to 24, then up to 32. And now, looking ahead to the 2026 World Cup across North America, there is an incredible 48-team roster planned. It is a massive testament to the insatiable global appetite for this game.
But despite all that massive growth, there is a really striking statistic I want you to keep in mind. Look at this number, 80. Over the tournament's entire history, 80 different national teams have managed to qualify and compete on the world stage. Now that sounds like a lot of countries, right? But here's the kicker.
Despite 80 different teams competing over the years, the winner's circle remains incredibly exclusive. No way around it. Becoming a world champion is a nearly impossible feat. Only 8 nations have ever actually won the cup. Brazil leads the pack. They're actually the only team to play in every single edition with 5 total victories. And then you've got Germany and Italy sitting right behind them with 4 titles each.
Which brings us to the future. Considering how far we've come from a grueling 15-day boat ride with only 13 teams and a literal argument over a soccer ball, what new heights, and honestly, what new dramas, will the World Cup reach in its next century? As we approach the 2030 centennial and a massive 48-team roster, the history of this tournament reminds us that from the most chaotic origins, true global magic can actually happen. I hope this TubeDuel Original Explainer gave you a much deeper understanding of how this beautiful game conquered the world. Thanks so much for hanging out with me, and I'll catch you on the next one.